Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, across this great country. It's time for Cleveland to come front and center. Move over Jacobs Field, move over the Richfield Coliseum, move over the Q, the Flats, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Peter Ray coming through, bringing the American Sports History Podcast. Yours truly, Mark Mancini, producing it, 347-205-9631. You can catch the archive version because this show goes quick, 30 minutes, on blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports, podcast platforms powered now by Mancini Media. Without further ado, let me lay the red carpet down, put the podium in its place, and hand over the mic. Peter, first of all, how are you? Second of all, how can people get a hold of you? Third of all, another great guest comes through Cleveland.
Hi, Mark. I'm doing very well. I have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Peter J. Ray, and I also have a website, Adventures in History with Peter J. Ray at peterjray.com. You're absolutely right. Tonight, our guest, as a sports fan, it's wonderful going to games, but often you don't go because you can't make it, so we rely on broadcasters. And I have such fond memories of, especially radio broadcasters back in the 70s, Joe Tate, Herb Score, guys like that, and what a tremendously important role these individuals play. And tonight we have a man with 25 years experience as a basketball broadcaster. Incredible. And he did the Harlem Globetrotters, one of the most beloved basketball teams of all time, for 4 years. He's also done games in the ABA, the more recent version, also the NBA G League. So welcome to the show, Mr. Joe Rosenson.
Peter, thank you so much. How are you this evening? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm fine. Can you first of all give us an overview of your career as a basketball broadcaster?
Absolutely. So in 1996, I decided that I wanted to be more involved in my favorite sport, basketball, and I knew it wouldn't be athletically. So I thought, what about announce? And, growing up as a young man, I always liked to watch the Philadelphia 76ers announcer. He was just the most exciting announcer that I'd ever seen. So I figured, I'm going to start announcing, and I'm going to do research on how to prepare for the game, for the rosters, for the referees, and for things that in the game that people might not know that might get them involved and excited into the game. So I started in 1996 with Pasadena City College, and then in 1998 there was an NBA lockout at the Long Beach Pyramid where they were playing the NBA Summer Pro League games back then. They would have at least 20 NBA teams playing their Summer Pro League teams there, their first-round draft picks, their second-round draft picks, and that year, the Harlem Globetrotters actually put a competitive team in that league. And a lot of people don't know, back when Manny Jackson owned the team from the early 90s on through the time he sold the team, he actually wanted people to know the Globetrotters were not just great magicians and funny people that played basketball. The Globetrotters had some of the greatest athletes in the world. And Manny Jackson wanted people to know that they can play competitively with anybody in the world. They also played the College All-Star Series in 2000, and they showed everybody that, not only are they the funniest team in American history, that they're the most athletic, and people really got a lot more respect for the way the Globetrotters played, knowing that they were an all-around basketball team to the American people.
Right, that must have been a real thrill. Now, do you do primarily TV or radio?
I normally have done radio and also the PA announcing in the arena. And since I started with the Globetrotters in 1998 through 2002, I actually did the music and the announcing, which was that was right about the time announcers began to do both. Back in the day, you would have a person doing the music, a person doing the announcing, maybe a DJ. But back in 98, the Globetrotters announcers actually did the music, the sound effects, the timeout music, besides interacting with the team during the game. So it was really exciting being able to see what sound effects, spam prompts, and music I could get to get the crowd into the game, because most people think of basketball game as just a sporting event. But as we know, it's not just a sporting event, that teams are looking for the entertainment value for their customers, and that's what the Globetrotters have done better than anybody in NBA history or in sports history.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I think everyone has a soft spot in their heart for the Harlem Globetrotters, for those guys, and it's just and it's interesting. Obviously, they are tremendously talented. People know the games most people see are not they're a show, but they have tremendous talent, and really, so that's wonderful that you got to be a part of that important part of American culture. Guys like Curly Neal and Meadowlark Lemon. I remember they used to. At one point, they used to throw a bucket. Sometimes you'd think it was confetti, or you didn't know it was in the bucket, and they throw it in the crowd. Sometimes it would be water, but it was really a wonderful experience seeing those fellas.
Absolutely.
You got a front row seat. You got to call the games. That's amazing.
And that's the way I look at it. I got the best seat in the house, and I was an employee, but it was almost like I was getting paid to actually do something that I love. And that's a message to all the young kids out there, that if you want to be in broadcasting, if you want to be an announcer, if you want to be a sportscaster, all I can recommend is speak with people that have already been in the business, speak with people that have already been in the business that are professionals, and speak with people that are humble. Because when it comes down to it, a lot of people look at themselves as, oh, I'm this person, so I'm the star. But they're not. The stars are the players. The announcers are just there to frame the game for people. And so these young kids out there that think they may want to go into broadcasting, this is something that you would really enjoy. And if it's your dream and you love sports, especially basketball or whatever sport you love, soccer, hockey, baseball, go fulfill your dreams, do your research, and always be more prepared than the next person.
Have you had an NBA interview?
I did try out for the LA Lakers Summer Pro League team, LA Lakers NBA G League team, the South Bay Lakers. So that was an excellent experience. And I did do the Bakersfield Jam for 10 seasons of the NBA G League, and they were an affiliate, different teams, different years, Toronto Raptors, Atlanta Hawks, Los Angeles Clippers. And announcing for the Jam was a great experience. David Higdon and Steve Chase, two of the owners, were two of the classiest people ever. They wanted to make sure that people enjoyed the show, and it was in a family environment. And NBA G League games, even though they don't draw a lot of people, except for maybe in Maine where there may not be as much to do on a daily basis, NBA G League is fantastic basketball, and a lot of these guys now are using that as a stepping stone more than ever to get to the NBA.
Do you aspire to be an NBA broadcaster?
I would love to be an NBA broadcaster. I would love to get a job possibly down the road with the Atlanta Hawks. I love the Hawks brand. The announcers that they have now are fantastic. They have Bob Rathburn, who does the voice, and he's been there for many, many years. But the main thing is I'm just continuing to prepare, continuing to try to do whatever it takes to stand out from the crowd. And the other thing young kids may want to know is it's a very competitive type of field to get into, and most fields are. But even if you hear a no once or twice or three times, we've all heard a no, and that's okay, because the right team will come around, and when they select you, they're going to be grateful that they did.
Yeah, and I would think that with the past, I mean, you're not like an athlete who has the clock is ticking, but the more you do anything, the better you get, and so. And it's a tough long shot based on there's only 30 teams. So, but anyway, I sure hope the day comes where we see Joe Rosenson was hired by whatever team, and that would be tremendous to see that happen for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, nothing. If you don't aspire to things, they don't happen. You have to, and you have such a good attitude about it. You're being patient, and and in the meantime, you've still had, even if you don't make it to the NBA, still you've had a tremendous career, and I give you a lot of credit because, like I said, as a fan back in the '70s. Some of my fondest memories of Cleveland. Very few games were on TV back then, and now, with cable TV rates being so high, a lot of people I don't have cable TV now, so I end up sometimes having games on the radio. So, and I have very fond memories of listening to games on the radio with Joe Tate, and to me, basketball is such a fun game because especially if you have a team gets a big lead, and then and especially if it's a playoff game, and then late in the game when another team makes a run, especially if the home team makes a run, and it's very dramatic, when you have the shifts of momentum. And so, and the announcer has this. I like that Mike Breen when a team is making a run and they hit a three, he says "bang." He says.
Yes, he does. That's his catchword. Everybody, that's one thing that everybody has got their certain style. I remember when I first started with the Bakersfield Jam, the announcer for the Detroit Pistons used to always say that Detroit basketball, and got the Detroit fans to imitate him during the game. They wanted me to say Bakersfield basketball, and I pretty much said to them, I want to be able to be my own person, and people have already heard that, so people don't want to hear repeat stuff from another team. So, I was able to come up with other things to get the Bakersfield crowd involved, but it's just a good example of find out which style you want. Some teams just want the monotone announcer. They don't want the person that has all the excitement, and some teams do, and you'll never know which one they want. So just be yourself, announce the way you feel is the best for you, that makes you feel like you've done the best job, and just hope that the right opportunity comes. Getting back to 1998, Peter, I tried out for the Los Angeles Sparks of the WNBA, and there was about 8 people that tried out. They boiled it down to 3 people. It was myself and 2 others. I didn't end up getting the job, but that was the same year that the Globetrotters were at the Summer Pro League, like I mentioned earlier. So when they tell you in life something better comes along, it's absolutely true. I ended up announcing for the greatest basketball team maybe in the world, but definitely in the United States, and it might not have happened if I would have got that job. So I'm grateful to be a part and was a part of the great Harlem Globetrotters organization.
Yeah, that's really something to be proud of and to feel good about. I remember in '76, the Cleveland Cavs got to had an exciting year, got to the playoffs, and they had these uniforms that were like red and yellow, or sort of gold. And then Joe Tate when they would do it, he'd say, "A standing O for the wine and gold." I always liked that, or he'd call it, if a guy had a slam dunk, he'd call it wham with the right hand. And do you have any anything signature expressions that you use in calling games?
No, I'm pretty much the type of announcer that's upbeat. I like to get the crowd into the game and excited without being obnoxious. And because there are some announcers out there that kind of go a little bit overboard and think it's all about them. So I try not to cross that line, but I try to make it as exciting as possible with the way I announce the home team and the visiting team, and hope that the fans enjoy the extra motivation to get their team, the home team, a chance to, win the game and be in whatever situation they need to be to close out whatever victory.
So you're not only doing the games on the radio, you're the public address announcer.
Right. That's what I did for the Jam. I did the PA announcing for 10 seasons. And for the Globetrotters, I did the PA announcing for 5 seasons. And I also was the manager of basketball operations in 2000. So I booked all the hotels for the East Coast and West Coast tour. I also booked the player appearances. And back then, I don't know if you remember, Peter, but now there's more females on the Harlem Globetrotters than there have ever been in the history of the Globetrotters organization since 1926. Back then, Tisha Penicheiro from Portugal, who played for the Sacramento Monarchs, she was also going to be part of the organization, which was wonderful. She was a very nice young lady, and it was great dealing with her. But to see how the Globetrotters are always one step ahead of all these other sports franchises and organizations. They had the first female player earlier than anyone, referees, and the three-point shot. The Globetrotters did everything in every aspect of basketball that a lot of people don't really know, but the Globetrotters with the trick shots and and things like that.
Yeah, do they still play the New Jersey Generals, or what's the name of the team they play?
They play the Washington Generals, and
Washington
when I was
Generals.
with them, when I was with them, they were the New York Nationals. They
Okay.
changed the name to the New York Nationals back when I was with them. And it's interesting you say that because we know that the Washington football team just recently changed their name, and there were rumors out there that they were trying to buy the last name of the Generals from the Washington Generals, but it never ever materialized, and they were thinking about naming the football team the Washington Generals, but obviously that never went through. But that definitely would have been interesting. Once again, the Globetrotters have an impact, not even on basketball, but another sport, the NFL.
Just to clarify, have you worked when you're doing a game as a public address announcer, is it also you're also doing announcing for radio at the same time?
No.
Okay.
No, they are definitely separate. Absolutely.
Have you done radio broadcasting of games?
I have. I actually worked for CRN in 2009 to 2011. I had a show called The Sports Corner with Joe Rosenson, and actually I also had Sean Rooks, who played with the Dallas Mavericks, the LA Clippers, the LA Lakers. He was actually co-hosting with me back in 2010, and we basically did the sports show together. Had a call-in show, and it was absolutely incredible doing a sports talk show, because it's another example, like with you, Peter. You don't just get on the air and start talking to people. You have to do your research. You have to know the games of the days, the stories of the day, and that takes 2-3 hours minimum of preparation for each show. So let the youngsters out there know that if you want to get into radio, if you want to get into sports talk, or just hosting a show on the radio, that preparation is always number one.
Which do you prefer, public address announcing or calling games on the radio?
Actually, I enjoy public address announcing more, because I think I can make a bigger impact as much as an announcer can on a game. With the sound effects and fan prompts that I have that a lot of other teams in the league don't have, it just makes it like people are going to a basketball game, but they're going to a party, and it's something that they're going to remember, not just so much for the game, of course, but they're going to remember what a great time they had and a family environment that they were a part of, which obviously the Globetrotters, family environment, those two go hand in hand. They're better than that than anybody in the history of sports, and they continue to do that and will once things start up with them again.
So does the public address announcer, if there's a timeout call, he'll say that, right?
Absolutely. He'll say there's a timeout, and then some teams now more than ever, it's been about 25 years, but some teams now, the announcer does the music and the timeout music, and if there's a in-between periods promotion, they'll make sure that they get the crowd hyped. When I was with the Globetrotters the first season, they had dog races at halftime. So, I'm a big-time dog lover, bigger than maybe anybody ever, and just being able to do those dog races, calling it like the Kentucky Derby, where they're down the stretch they come and then announcing the dogs' names, you would think, oh, it's dog races, it's not that big of a deal. People went crazy for those dog races.
When the before the game and the home players are announced, come out, and you give background on the guys, like where they went to college, stuff like that? Absolutely.
So I would give one or two big highlights. With the Globetrotters, I would give, obviously, the showman. Back when I was with them, it was Paul Showtime Gaffney and Matthew Showbiz Jackson. So obviously, since they're the star of the show, you give them a little bit more and just make it so people are so excited that they're going to get a chance to see this person play by highlighting usually their college career. Most of these guys went to Division I schools, so a lot of people would know where they went. There are some smaller schools that the team went to, but for the most part, you've got the North Carolinas and schools like that became Harlem Globetrotters.
When you're introducing players, do you have any leeway in terms of what you say about them, or is it up to you completely, and do you change it all from game to game?
Well, at least for the home team, pretty much things stay the same. Now, when records are broken during the season, like Michael Wild Thing Wilson broke the slam dunk record in 1999. He had the highest dunk and leap ever in the United States history. He's part of the Guinness Book of World Records. So after he had that, obviously I wanted to incorporate that into his introduction so people will know, wow, this guy jumped higher than anybody in the world to slam dunk, and I'm seeing history here.
It must be interesting, especially doing these games, guys hoping to, advance with their careers, and they're young guys, and you see them game. Everyone wants to see a strong major league team, but on the other hand, when you see guys in the minors, it's nice to watch guys and try to predict, who's gonna make it. Have you had that experience where you're watching guys and trying to, and then you did see them succeed, and you thought, well, I really could see this coming?
Yeah, there's definitely been a few players. After I announced for the Pasadena City College team in 1996, I also announced for LA City College, who was basically the powerhouse of junior colleges in Southern California. They won back-to-back championships, and they had some players like Rico Harris, who ended up playing a little bit for the Globetrotters. He went to Cal State Northridge. They had another young player, Jarrell Blassingame. And you can just see in their game that these guys were going to do some great things, and that they really did. And it's just a matter of staying on course, because as we know, a lot of these players have been the best player on their team ever since they've been young. So if they can stay grounded, which I know is easier said than done, and I guess that's a story in life, stay grounded, be humble, that these players can turn out and do whatever they want as long as they put the work into it.
Do the players tell you what music they want played when when they're introduced before the game?
There are times where players ask and request that I play certain songs, so I just make sure, obviously, that it's fan-friendly. I don't want anything offensive, but, of course, nowadays, unfortunately, it seems like everything's offensive. But I want to play things that, yes, that get the players excited and motivated to hear their name. But, number one, I don't want to offend the fans, because these people are bringing their children to the game. And if you want to continue in sports to be the sports leader, it's not just getting the fan base right now. You're getting the parents and their two kids right now, like for a Globetrotter game, but I want those two kids when they get older to bring their kids to the game. So I must make sure that they have the greatest experience ever, so they'll tell their kids, and it's almost like free marketing, because you're going to get fans for life with really having to put in minimal work, even though a lot of work is taken into effect to make sure you're successful.
Do you interview players?
I hadn't interviewed players. I interviewed Randy Gill when I was doing the Long Beach Jam of the ABA. That was the year, Peter, that Dennis Rodman in 2003 played for the Globetrotters. And if you can imagine, there were at least 50 photographers before the game taking pictures of him. And Dennis Rodman, I'll say it and I'll say it again, has always been one of my favorite basketball players in NBA history. Yes, he did some strange things, but the guy worked harder than anybody else. And you hear a lot of people say, well, Dennis Rodman, all he did was rebound. Dennis Rodman may have shot 3 to 5 times a game. If he would shoot 30 times a game like a lot of these guys in the NBA now, he would have averaged 30 points a game. But he was there for defense, he was there for rebounding, and he was there for hustle, and there's nobody ever in NBA history that could say they were better than him at that, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, and the thing is, it is entertainment, and he was a personality, and so I remember when they were lining up for free throws, and instead of facing, where it's kind of a meaningless thing they go through, especially on the first shot, but he was like facing toward the player. So anyway, I think your work must be very fulfilling, because you have an opportunity to be creative, and entertainment means creativity. And so that must. You want to talk about the creative aspect of your work?
Absolutely. So as a PA announcer, being able to ad-lib might be your best feature, because you never know where the game's going. And the NBA game obviously is a lot faster than Major League Baseball or the NFL. So an announcer has to really think on their feet. And it's almost like, if that's the field you want to go into, announcing, PA announcing, especially basketball, just remember you always want to have in the back of your mind, you need to be, or at least try to think, one step ahead of something potentially happening. So a guy getting a pass and then scoring a basket, and what music that you may want to play and how you want to announce that person's name. In basketball, and a good announcer, a professional announcer, is always thinking almost beyond that play because it goes so fast that if you don't, you're going to find yourself maybe with nothing to say, which is something that, as we know, in broadcasting, you never want to have a silent mic.
Right.
Well, maybe sometimes you do, but I don't think people want that.
So do you have like a series of buttons with different music, short music pieces that you can hit to play at certain times based on what you think is right?
I sure do. I have actually on my computer, I have different icons for sound effects, sound bites, 80s music, 90s music, disco music, rap music. The rap music, obviously, I would play maybe to start the game, during warm-ups to get the players involved in the game. During the game, maybe a timeout, you'll play 80s music. I know the Boston Red Sox have played Sweet Caroline at the seventh-inning stretch for many, many years, but that's also another song that I like to play going into halftime because people are getting ready maybe to go get some merchandise, get something to eat, and people that are my age and even younger all know that Neil Diamond and Sweet Caroline is one of the greatest songs in American history.
Yeah, and I didn't become aware until I don't know when that in the Red Sox, it's the Boston Red Sox, it's the seventh inning stretch song. And I think it was at the movie Fever Pitch, and I thought, that is so cool, you know, that they have this, and it's a wonderful song, and that's really nice that you play it because it's a beautiful song.
It is, and like I was saying earlier, with the Globetrotters, I try to play something that would appeal to everybody. A lot of times you go into an arena and you hear just one type of music and that's it. Well, that's fine if you're trying to appeal to one type of person that likes one type of music. But to me, the more you play, you're going to hit a note with somebody like, oh, I remember that in high school. I remember that in junior high school. I remember that in college. Boy, I remember that when we had children. And that's what you want, the creative mind that you use to play the songs to get the people involved in the games. Yes, they remember the games first, but people love to hear songs that they've loved for many, many years growing up. And that's what I try to do, is try to get as many of those as possible to get people into the game and excited.
So you keep coming up with new ideas regarding music.
Absolutely. I come up with new ideas regarding music. I come up with new ideas for sound effects and sound bites that can be used during the game. When they make free throws, you know, the Globetrotters really started that in '98 with the music during the game, with the music while there's play, with the sound effects. And everybody thinks that the NBA is the pioneer of everything, and the NBA is $1 billion industry, but every good thing they've ever done, or almost every good thing they've ever done, has come from the Globetrotters with the sound effects, with the music, with the halftime music, with playing YMCA, going into the third quarter break, getting everybody out of their seat. The Globetrotters revolutionized not only the game, but how the game was seen, played, and heard.
You know, I became a Cleveland Indians fan in 1973 at old Cleveland Municipal Stadium, and I remember it was either that year or the next year we entered the stadium, my dad and I, Gate A, and they were playing the song "Happy Days Are Here Again," which was the 1932 presidential campaign song for Franklin D. Roosevelt. You know that song, Happy Days Are Here Again. The skies above are clear again. Anyway, if you want, and whenever I hear that song, oh my God, it just takes me back. To me, it was so cool. So you might consider playing that song. That's a real old song, but there are some older people who would appreciate it.
I'll make sure they play it when they come to Cleveland, and make sure they mention your name. See, that's what I was talking about earlier, Peter. You know, people, you remember this from going to baseball games with your father. This is what I'm talking about with the fan experience. Of course you remembered being with your dad, number one, the most important thing. The game, number two. But as I said earlier, the music you heard sticks with you for a lifetime. And it really, really does for people.
Our guest has been Mr. Joe Rosenson, a basketball broadcaster, public address announcer for 25 years. The time has flown by. Joe, do you have any final words for our audience?
All I want to say, Peter, is thank you so much for having me on your incredible show. And if people out there are looking for the best shows on Blog Talk Radio, you've got to listen to Peter Ray. He's an incredible historian, person, and please support him as much as you can because he's phenomenal.
Well, that's awful nice of you. I appreciate that. And wow, I'm so impressed by your career. This is, I meet different people in this work in this podcast, and yeah, so this public address now, and I haven't given it much thought, but it's you're at a game, you don't think about it, but obviously you hear the guy. So, and obviously you're a very good person, and you have such a good attitude. And so I wish you all the best with your career, ongoing, wherever it takes you. Tremendous.
Thank you so much.
So thanks so much for coming on the show, Mr. Joe Rosenson.
Thank you so much, Peter. Have a great night, and everybody listen to Peter Ray's show. If you want excellence, it's right in front of you. You're listening to him right now.
Oh, you're such a good guy. I appreciate that. Dear listener, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Good night, everybody. Thanks again, Mr. Joe Rosenson.